You're watching Next Pitch, the student athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Hi, my name's Anthony Leveritz, host of the Next Pitch podcast, and we are super excited about this next series. We are going to bring you Mental Sweat with Hannah Huesman. Hannah is an incredibly talented young woman who has done amazing things so far, both in working with athletes and with in the business world. She is a mental performance coach, and we are going to break down 18 different topics associated with mental performance and discuss how they work in the athletics world, and then transition that into how can someone take these same things that we can learn in athletics about our mental performance, training our brains, and translate those into corporate America, into your relationships and your day-to-day lives as adults, and also then how to talk about these things with your kids. So we're super excited to have Hannah joining us, and it's going to be a fun journey. Hannah Huesman, thank you so much. I introduced you before we started here, but in this first episode, let's dive into your background again. I know you were on our other show to begin with, but for people who are just getting to this, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you've gotten to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So a quick background on me. I am originally from Nashville, Tennessee, and I played softball and basketball technically at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. And then I took a class my senior year, and it was all about sport and performance psychology, and I fell in love with it. And I was actually a little mad that we didn't have that when I was playing. And I was like on my last semester of my last playing days ever. And I would go to class and come back to the team. I was one of our captains and was like, we got to do this now. And just got really, really passionate about it. And honestly, that passion has never left. And from there, I went and got my master's in sport and performance psychology from the University of Tennessee. And then I spent the last 7 years working in professional baseball for different teams as a mental performance coach. And then about a year and a half ago, I started my own private practice called Mental Sweat, where I get to talk shop and support any and all performers, right? From youth elite level athletes to college to professional to business entities and first responders and everything in between. So it really just not just in the sports world, but also if you're a human and you're alive and you're performing, then mental performance can help you. And so just incredibly passionate about it. And now I'm here talking to you.
Which I'm super grateful for. When I first got introduced to you, I knew immediately there was more than just a podcast episode on this. And I'm really grateful that you've decided to do this. I think the value that this can provide for, as you just mentioned, across the spectrum. But let's dive in. First one, today we're going to talk about goal setting and visualization. And we'll get into the business side of this later. But why is it important for young athletes to be able to set goals, and how a two-part question to start this? How do we separate, if we do separate our personal goals from being a part of a team, if I'm part of a team sport?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, goals are probably the most common used mental skill, if you will, right? Most teams, most coaches, most parents are like, we need to set goals, right? We need to do something. And it's also the most commonly misused mental skill. So it's you really, when you think about goal setting, it doesn't have to be just this cookie cutter approach. When you're thinking about goal setting from a bigger picture, you have to think about where you are, right? Where are you right now? Is your goal to be a big league player and you're 6 years old? You know what I mean? Or is that your dad's goal and maybe not your goal? Is that, whatever it is, it's really unveiling where are you at right now? Where do you want to be? And then how do you get there, right? Those are the three questions I would start with. And the first one is the most important because a lot of times we jump into goal setting and you're like, so-and-so has this goal, or I saw this person do that, or my mom or dad did that, or my coach told me I need to do this. And it really boils down to like, does that goal fit for you? And so really, when it comes to goal setting, it comes to individualization, understanding who you are, where you are. So the first question I would ask myself is, where are you right now? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What am I happy about? Am I a little embarrassed about, right? Like really kind of pull back those layers and understand where you are. And then go for the big goal. It's okay. I don't think you can overshoot a goal. I think the bigger, the better. I really, really do believe that. And so write that goal out and then write down whether it's 3 steps to get from where you're at to where you want to be or 3,000 steps, right? What do you have to do in order to get there? And that's the hard part, right? That's the nitty gritty of goal setting, is asking yourself the question, how? And so you want to be a big league player. Okay, great. How do you do that? Well, I need to practice more. Okay, great. How do you practice more? Well, I need to hit more. Okay, great. How are you going to hit more? Right. And you get down to the point where you're like, I'm going to do this at this time with this person on this day. And that's how I'm going to do it. And then it's like, okay, we can't break it down anymore. Right. So it starts big and then it gets really, 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 really small. That's
Is the
my
small part the short term? So short term goal versus long term. I wanted to be an NFL quarterback. Clearly that didn't happen. But so I want to be something. I've got this big goal, but do you really talk about and break that down to this is the short term goal, like daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, yearly goal? How do you think about that, breaking that from big to small?
Yeah, my answer is yes. Um, mix both of them, right? I want you in a perfect world, your goals kind of aligns with however you work. If you want a weekly goal, great, do a weekly goal. If you need a daily goal, do a daily goal, right? However it resonates with you or your kids or whoever, that's what I would recommend you do. But I think it's not a battle of which is better, short or long term. They both impact you in different ways. And I think you need both, right? And so I think you need the long-term goal. Have that aspiring dream, and like put that up on your window somewhere or on your mirror or the background of your phone, whatever it is. But that can't be all you do, right? So then you break it down into all the short-term goals, which is really where the depth lies and the motivation lies, right? If we don't have those, it can get lost in the sauce a lot. And a lot of times people will ask too, is it process or outcome goals? Which one should we have? And again, it should be both, right? Like if your outcome goal is to gain 15 pounds of muscle, right? We have to acknowledge the outcome goal, but then we have to figure out, okay, well, how the heck are you going to do that? How much of this should be eating? How much more protein should you add to your diet? How much of the sugar should you remove? Whatever it is. So it's always a balance. And you'll hear me say that throughout this 18 series podcast like that we're going to do, is it's all about balance. And you have to understand it deeply yourself and understand, okay, I need one long-term goal and I need 5 short-term goals. And most of mine are process goals and one of them's an outcome goal, right? And how does that work? And if you have a clear way of doing what you need to do in order to achieve what you want to achieve, I don't care. I don't care what it looks like, as long as you have an understanding on what it's supposed to be and what you're supposed to do. And there's no uncertainty. There's zero gray area. What are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this. Well, how are you doing it? Here's how I'm doing it. Mic drop, end of the conversation. Okay, right? And there's zero confusion. If there's any confusion or gray area in your goal setting, you are literally going to fail. Like I will be the person to say that. You cannot leave it up to chance, right? It has to be every day. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. The end.
So it's something I said in coaching all the time. I still say it. My kids are tired of hearing this, but everybody wants great things.
Mm-hmm.
What are you willing to do to get those great things, right? That's what separates the activity versus achievement, to steal a John Wooden term. Final question on the athletic side. So I'm a parent.
Yeah.
And I've got that 6-year-old or that 10-year-old or that 14-year-old that has this amazing, vision for themselves of being the big leaguer, the NFL quarterback, but you probably know that they're not, right? Like the statistics tell us they're not. How do you talk to parents about helping kids be realistic with the goals that they're setting themselves so that they don't set themselves up to fail?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I have a baby, so I don't have a kid old enough to have had to go through that. But I think from like thinking about the people I've met with in the past, right? It's not necessarily about, okay, well, you're never going to be that. So are you sure that's what you want to try? Right? It's like, okay, if that's your goal and that's your dream, let's make sure we're doing everything we can to support you. But it's maybe them understanding like, you understand that 0.05% of people actually make this, or 0.01. I saw something in baseball the other day. It was crazy, right? Like if every major league player who has ever made it filled up a stands of one of the stadiums, it wouldn't be full, right? Like
That's
they wouldn't even
crazy.
fill the
Yeah.
stadium of all
Yeah.
time. Like it was unbelievable. And so it's and also I don't think failure is a bad thing, right? I think if you set a big goal, and your kid wants to be an NFL quarterback and they work so tirelessly and they do everything in their power. My husband wanted to be an NFL quarterback and he was for about a week, and it's like, and they want to do that. You learn work ethic, you learn responsibility, you learn resiliency. And like he walked away and was like, at least I knew I did everything in my power and I like was spot on and I just wasn't good enough. Like I can live with that, right? I can't live with the what ifs and all that stuff. So my advice is like, let them go for it, but help them realistically see how close, right? Or how far away they potentially are and what that's going to entail and what the journey might look like, which it might not be as pretty as they hope it would be. But
I think it's so good, right? It's what we get lost in is that sports are supposed to be about teaching habits and how to go about achieving something,
yeah,
whether you achieve it or not, whether you win or whether you lose, whether you get to
yeah.
where you want to go. And so not discouraging someone to do that, that big thing that they want to do. I think that's great advice. Okay. So we're going to transition into the business world here. Obviously, you've worked with high-level executives,
Mhm.
teams, companies, people trying to make improvement. How does this translate, that goal setting thing that we talk about in sports a lot? How
Mhm.
does that translate with your coaching into the business world?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more of a seamless transition than a lot of people think, right? It's very, very similar. Like in maybe, I mean, whether you're in corporate or you're in sports, right? If you ask, hey, where do you want to be in 5 years? Hey, where do you want to be in 10 years? A lot of times people know that answer, whether it's realistic or not, right? They know what that answer is. And so it's kind of the same situation, right? You're like, where do I want to be? And where am I in relation to where I want to be? And hopefully, like at least when you're in corporate, you have a little bit more of a clearer perspective of like how close or far away you potentially are. But I think we get bogged down a lot. And what I've seen with working with corporate world and business people is they really get lost in the day-to-day stuff and lose track of what is the long-term goal and like what are you fighting for? What are you pursuing? Why are you pursuing it? And it's just like this mundane wash, rinse, repeat, right? Almost like a groundhog day, which isn't a bad thing. And I remind high performers all the time, like you have to kind of embrace the boredom, but make sure the boredom is the consistency of what you're trying to achieve. Does that make sense? Like don't get bored in the complacency, get bored in the consistency, right? Like that's that, like think about that, right? It's doing the same thing over and over again, but hopefully you're doing the things you need to do, right? The process goals, the short-term goals to get you to where you want to be. But very similar, very similar. And I think sometimes we even lose sight of setting goals when we're in corporate America, right? Because you're just like chugging along, I'm doing what I'm doing. Well, don't lose sight that you can still set goals. You can still push yourself. And I would argue if you're trying to be the best version of yourself always, there's always going to be a rendition of your goals. Always. Like whether you do it on New Year, right? January 1st, whether you do it Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, whatever it is, like there's going to be some version of that. And I would actually encourage people, if you're listening and you haven't set goals lately or you haven't checked on your goals lately, do it. Why not? Like do it today. Pull out a piece of paper. Where are you right now? Where do you want to be? And how do you get there? See what happens. I mean, if anything, even if you don't end up creating the goals you want, at least you're starting to build and check in on your self-awareness, which we can never do that enough. And we should be arguably doing that on a daily basis.
So I do some work with corporate America, and one of the things that I've found is that high level executives and leadership teams don't always ask their people
Mhm.
what their goals are within their company and within their organization. And it's a really simple thing to do in the process. How often do you, when you're working with teams, do you find that companies and corporations actually find out what they want from their people? As a coach, when I'm recruiting a kid or they're in my program, whether they're coming in or they're year one, year two, like what's next for you? Where do you want to be? Do you want to be a pro? Do you want to just graduate and have your degree? What is your message to executives, the leadership teams about helping their people achieve those goals? And how does that help the executive if they know what their people want?
Yeah, I unfortunately probably not as much as we would want, right? To hear them talking about that. I have heard it in waves, but it's not consistent. And I mean, if you think about that, think about being an employee and like if you're a leader of a company or in a position of leadership, right? Think about if you were to ask someone, hey, where do you want to be in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And if they look you dead in the face and they're like, I want to be in your position. Like as a leader, that should encourage you, right?
Yes.
But like that means you hired the right person, right? You hired a go-getter, you hired the person who hopefully will put their nose to the grindstone and figure out what they need to do. But if you don't do that, then you kind of just have a lot of people kind of like in their own bubbles, right? Trying to configure out their own goals. Like I would doubt the leadership and mentorship is where it needs to be because there's just not a ton of conversation. If there is communication and healthy communication in a workforce, in a work field, you're going to be talking about what your goals are, right? And this is good because even if somebody's goal is like to say take your job, right? It also holds them accountable, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, you want to take my job. Well, what are we doing then? Like then you're going to be held to a higher standard and hopefully you do work me out of a job, right? And then we can all bump up. Like that's technically how it should work. But I do feel like lately it's a lot of protecting. People are protecting like, well, this is mine. I don't want you to even get close to it. So I'm not even going to ask you. And I just think that's a recipe for disaster, right? And like if you want to keep growing, whether you're in sports or whether you're in corporate America, like you have to have these open conversations about what do you want? And guess what? When you ask somebody what they want, they're going to give you more in return because they think that you care, right? If it's a genuine conversation, wait, this person actually gives a, you know what, about what I'm doing and where I want to be. Wow. Maybe that's the reason I show up to work today instead of half-assed it, right? I don't know what that looks like, but you
I
got to
do. You're
think just
right.
asking the right questions
Yeah.
opens a lot of conversations.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And it's about connection, right? And
For sure.
especially in corporate America with the transfer portal is open in corporate America. It's called LinkedIn.
Yeah,
It's been open far longer than the NCAA, right?
and
Your people are
Indeed.
getting recruited every single day. And what you want is to create connection
That's great.
between your people and the organization. So it's not just about a paycheck. And what you said, I find over and over again, if you and do it in the onboarding process instead of just learning where the cafeteria is, learning where the how to get paid and my benefits, just to ask some simple questions of
Yeah.
the people about where they want to be, how they want to grow, what's important to them. This person all of a sudden just showing up new on the job and continuing to rinse and repeat that process thinks, oh my God, my company cares about me. They care
Yeah.
about what I want out of my life. It's going to create a different culture within your organization.
Yeah, and don't forget, do not forget you're dealing with human beings. And
Mm,
it's so hard because in sports you only have a jersey on, right? In corporate America you only have a tie on or a dress on or your heel, like whatever it is. You only see them in one entity, but they're still a human. So if your company allows, if your team allows for you to get to know the human better, you're going to get a better performer because of it. Like period, paragraph. Like think about that. If you only so many people listen to you every day, right? Like, oh, like if you have a phone call, you know when somebody's distracted, you know when somebody's busy, but you also know so much when somebody is locked in and it's like, hey, Anthony, the only thing I care about is whatever you're about to say right now. It almost takes your breath away because you're like,
yeah.
wait, I'm a little nervous now. Like nobody showed me this much attention in a minute, right? And
Yeah.
and it's just because phones and fast and immediate gratification, all those things play a part of that. But if you can be the one person who's like, I genuinely want to know more about who you are and what you want, I think you'd be amazed at how far that can get you. I really do.
Such good stuff. Okay, last thing on today. What are some common myths
Mm.
that are out there about goal setting and visualization? And you might have touched on them already a little bit today, but what if you could, in a nutshell, what are some common myths that need to be dispelled about goal setting and visualization?
To me, I think the biggest one is just trying to make just this perfect goal sheet, right? And like, or I want to set the goal that Joe's setting or that Sally's setting, and I want to do what they're doing. And it's like, truly, the only thing that matters to goal setting is if it has like a personal tug at your heart, right? And your work ethic and your why and can motivate you and you feel attached to it. That's honestly the only way it's going to work. So if you do a team workshop with your team for 30 minutes and somebody's just eye watch, like it's not going to do anything. You might as well have, it actually might even have the opposite effect, right? They might be less motivated to do it. So it should be a one-on-one thing. It should be a very personal thing, whether it's in sport or business, like, because it's not going to be pretty either, right? A lot of people think goal setting is just like win the championship, become the MVP, be the most improved, right? There's so much more that has to go into that. Like, it should be like, I'm really bad at this, so I have to get better at that. So it's a time to be vulnerable and to tell someone else what that is. That's having them hold you accountable, but also you being vulnerable. And so it just doesn't have to be this like picture perfect. Look at this beautiful goal sheet I made. It has to be real and raw in order for it to actually have impact. So don't feel like it has to be perfect. Don't feel like you have to tell the world. Don't feel like it has to be cookie cutter, because those are actually probably the least impactful way of setting goals. But make it hit your heart, make it get you going, make it excite you, make it a fun process. And again, I don't care what it looks like as long as it resonates with you and works for you. Done.
Such good stuff. Hannah, how can people find you? Where do they go to find you? Where do they go to follow you, get more of your content besides this amazing podcast that we're doing here? Where else can they go to find you?
Yeah, everywhere. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. All the things. And I have a website. It's just hannahhuesman.com. So feel free to reach out, ask questions, or even just say hi and that you heard the podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, thank you for doing this. I'm looking forward to going through this entire journey. I think there's a ton of content here that we are going to be able to really help people. Like the whole goal of this is to provide information that resonates with people and helps people along every step of the way through this whole mental performance, training your brain to get better. So thank you so much for being a part of this, and I look forward to doing the next one.
Yeah, thanks for having me.